So hello everyone, my name's Luke. I work in recruitment for Creative Assembly. So I'm simply here to hand the mic between the two intelligent people who can tell you a little bit more about what they do and how they interact on a daily basis. To give you a clue about me, I am recruitment, so I am processing your applications, I am chasing hiring managers, I am headhunting people, going to events and giving talks and talking about employability and things like this. So yeah, that's enough about me. I'll hand you over to Laura, and she can talk a little bit about her.
Hi everyone. Hi. My name is Laura, and I'm a game and AI designer on Total War. That means I design some of the mechanics, bits and pieces of others, or my own whole mechanic, or work on the behavior of the AI personalities, and yeah, that's it in a nutshell, really.
Hello everyone, I'm Andrew. I'm a UI programmer. I've been here for a couple of years. I'm currently working on all Warhammer related projects.
It's a bit of a difficult one because as a designer, I will be on the project for the whole duration of the project, whereas programmers, they're needed at all times, always, on every project. So, for example, I start working on the details of the mechanic. I might approach the programmer, might approach Andrew on getting the initial estimate for how long do you think this will take. But they will only actually start coming on for like detailed, what do you actually need us to do, and start working on it later on in the production process.
So usually, estimates, we try to base them on stuff we've done previously. If it's something entirely new, it's difficult to estimate. You just have to come up with something, and usually, you overestimate. Say, it's going to take longer than you expect, because everything always takes longer than you expect. You see, like buildings, all sorts, it's always over budget, it takes way too much time. So that's how I think about stuff.
Well, when we are both working on the same thing at the same time, generally speaking, by then the design will be finalized, and it will only be certain things that, oh, actually this isn't doable, we'll have to do this in a different way, or, oh, there's an issue with this, how do you want to fix it, how should we fix it, how about fixing it like this, etc. And to ensure that we do keep on top of these things, at this point in the project, there would be stand-ups that we do quite commonly, whether it's daily or weekly. And this is something that in the planning phase we won't do so often. We'll do a loose stand-up maybe once a week, but then the closer it gets to the end, the more important it becomes to make sure that we will talk to each other and we're on top of what the progress is with the programming side, the design side, and if there's anything that's blocking anyone.
I think it's like 50-50. Because obviously designers come up to you and say, can we do this? Can we change this? And you're like, no, we can't. We can't change this. We can't do this. Or maybe we can. I think sometimes things that look very simple to do can be quite complicated and under the hood, code-wise. Whereas designers don't always see that. But definitely it's a lot of communication between the design and code. It's 50-50, I'd say, at that point.
It's basically, yeah, I wasn't joking, but I was pointing at Andrew, when someone is not just sort of saying, oh, I'm busy, I'm working on something else, I'm not going to look into this now. Someone who, when you approach them with something, they instantly come up with the attitude of, we'll try to do this, rather than, we probably can't, whatever. Someone who looks into it, makes time for it, and does it well, and is easy to talk to.
Willingness to compromise, I think, is what I look for in a designer. That's the biggest thing for me. Obviously good communication skills, being able to get across what they want. Because sometimes you find what someone really wants isn't what they're saying, and you have to try and work out what it really is they want.
I think definitely the biggest thing is the communication. So the more we talk, the more likely it is that we can get ahead of problems, and we can, we're on the same page, and it's not going to be like, turns out that a week down production, they're working on something completely different than what I'm working on, and then we need to basically scrap 2 weeks of work because we are not doing it in a coherent way. So I think communication is very important. And then the other thing is just really the attitude of, if you're unsure about something, again, communication, but a different aspect of communication. The aspect of, if you're unsure about something, you go and find out more about it, you go and ask about it, you go and clarify, because, again, it's just really to save time down the line.
I think communication is probably the most important thing. I think it's humongous to be able to communicate with everyone on your team. You have to talk to the designers, to the artists, to the producers, to everyone, other programmers. Everyone has to know what's going on. You have to be clear about what's going to happen. Everything has to be clear. Documents, tasks, everything has to be super clear.
So we have our lovely producers who are essentially our project managers, and depending on what project, in what point in time, we use various tools for this. So right now we're using Jira for tracking tasks and times and assigning the tasks for certain time periods, prioritizing them, etc. And I also keep my own notebook of things that I need to do, and I need to make sure that I don't forget, so I can always go back to it and make sure that I haven't actually forgotten about this tiny little detail that I meant to do a long time ago and I just never got to it.
We mainly use Jira. We sometimes use Dev Suite, which I don't know if that is just our thing or if it's an industry thing or not. But it's just a task tracking system. Has priorities for stuff, priorities for bugs, tasks, levels, classes of task. An A level would be something that's crashing the game, B is like something that's pretty bad for the game, but not crashing. And C would just be like minor blemishes on the game.
So when a bug is logged in DevC, as Andrew mentioned, it's also assigned to a person, and that person will be generally, ideally, the person who's responsible for the area. So if it's a design bug, then it will be assigned to the designer who's responsible for that feature. If it's a code bug, then it will be for the programmer responsible, etc. And we also have, again, our project managers, our producers, who sort of have an overview of this and make sure that everything's in the right place. Or if you see that there's a bug on you which is clearly not your task, then you'll probably know who on the team it's actually supposed to be going to, and you reassign it.
Most of the time it's just me who's dealing with it, I think. Sometimes you have to escalate stuff to designers, because sometimes things will be underestimated or things are overestimated. It's definitely like game-breaking stuff that's underestimated that people aren't aware of how bad it is, and you have to let them know this is horrible, this has to be fixed now.
So I would say the primary one is being able to let go of your ideas. And that sounds bad on its own, but with context, it's not just your game that you're making for yourself. It's a team of designers, and you're making it for a large audience. So it might be that you have a great idea that you think is great, and you might really like it, but if, say, you're on a team of 5 designers, and 4 designers disagree with you, and they can argue for why, then it's probably best to take their ideas on board and, work towards a design that either is completely different, if necessary, or alter it in a way that fits both your desire and what everyone else agrees that works. And I think that's important because it can be really hard to, you have an idea, you're really passionate about it, and then no one else is, or say everyone else is on board, and then turns out that we can't do it because it requires too much programming time or too much art time or something, and you have to change it fundamentally in a way that essentially means that you're not doing what you were initially planning to do, and that can be really hard, and I feel like that is a sort of acquired mindset that you need to get used to.
Bit of learning how to work with humongous code bases. When I first started, it felt like I was swimming in an ocean, the amount of code that was there. So I learned how to find stuff very quickly, that is important to me in the code, and how to work with other people's code. I mean, there's a lot of legacy stuff in there that you have to learn and have to be able to deal with. I mean, it's not all modern C++, there's some ancient stuff, and you just have to be able to compromise and be able to use older code as well as modern stuff. I think it can be a bit of a double-edged sword, to be honest, because having some knowledge, you might have basic knowledge or something, but not really understand how complicated it might actually be to implement. But it is useful to have some technical knowledge, I think. But like I said, it can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like, it's something that you notice both when you're just on your day-to-day basis, just talking to other designers. You need to be able to get across what your idea is. Like, we're all working on our own mechanics, our own design areas, and we'll run something past each other. You're not going to take the whole day trying to be like, no, but really, what is it that you're actually trying to do? No, you want them to be like, oh, what do you think of this? I think this. Oh, okay, and then we both move on.
Yeah, so we get asked a lot of deep C++ questions, like why are you doing this? What is this? Why? What? When? How? Everything, basically. We dig into everything C++. And there's huge amounts of... And I think it's not just the technical things I'm looking for there, it's how well we can talk to other people. Because I think programmers, right? Stereotypically, they can't communicate that well, I feel. And what we're looking for at CA are programmers who can communicate well. It's having technical knowledge and people knowledge as well. And that is what we're looking for in our interviews, I feel.
Okay, if someone would just not give me an estimate, that doesn't happen, let's be honest. So that doesn't happen. But they might, just because, that would be an issue, because they need to give an estimate, even if the estimate then turns out to be, 10 times our budget, and then we can see that that's a no. But they might say themselves that, here's an estimate, for example, or they know the budget they have on the project, and they will say no because they know that it's not a feasible thing to do within the scope of the project that we're talking about, and then they'll explain why. And then I'm not really in a position to say, yes, you can suddenly have 10 times as much time as you currently have in order to make this feature that I really want. So in that case, I will have to go back and I will have to go and think of a simpler way to do it, or see if there's maybe a way I can do it with script rather than code. Because although we don't write code, we do, whenever it's needed, we will write script using Lua and try to get around things that we didn't have code time for by scripting it ourselves as designers. I think this comes with experience a little bit. So in the beginning, so I started as a trainee myself as well, and in the beginning, if I was told to get an estimate for this, and then I get the estimate and then they say no, basically I would just go back to the game director and say, hi, they said no, now what do we do? And then they will make a call on it and we'll move on. But now I'm in a position where I would, there are cases where I would have to talk to the game designer, the game director, and we have to discuss it. Maybe they'll make a call on themselves or by themselves, or we'll discuss our options, or I'll come up with an alternative, propose it, see what they think. Or if it's, in other cases, I will be able to make a call on it myself and either redesign it or talk to the programmer in person rather than just over Skype and talk it through, like, is there really nothing we can do? Okay, then how can we do it differently? So we're still doing it, but what is it that would take so much time that we can't do it? What is it that we need to do differently? And then try to approach it that way.
I usually go back to the designer and let them know this is too big, and talk to my lead, say we can't do this, and we'll see what we can actually do instead. Usually that will mean like either cutting the feature or cutting down on the feature. And I don't think any designer is ever happy to see that happen, but something that has to happen. And as Laura said, we have budgets, time budgets for everything, so we can't do everything. And sometimes we just have to cut down. Usually programmers are able to come in and say, like, you know, could we do this instead? Maybe we could do this. Because sometimes things that seem just a little bit worse take significantly less time to implement.
So, I mean, for me personally, and I think designers in general, we kind of take it as feedback, as you said as well. So sometimes it's amazing, and instantly we're like, yes, that's what we're doing, perfect. This is something we can do. It means that we can do the mechanic. Great, let's do that. Slightly we're sure, whatever. And then sometimes it's so far away. The alternative that we could do is so far away from what we actually want to achieve with that mechanic that it's not worth it. And you know, the feedback is really appreciated, and it's good to know that we like what the alternative is. But it's it depends on what stage of the project as well. So like if the design is already fleshed out, then we'll take whatever alternatives we can get and we'll just go with that. But if it's super early stages and we identify it very early on that this is something that is way over scope, then we have a lot more time to just go back to it ourselves and see, okay, how else could we approach this in a more feasible, rounded way. As designers, we're essentially usually responsible for a mechanic as one designer. So like say for example, I would work on the technology tree and that would be my thing or one of my things. And then that doesn't mean that from that point onwards, I'm the only one working on this at all. It means that I'm the only one working on it on a sort of detailed working on it, actively working on it basis, and then we'll have design meetings where we'll discuss it and we'll go through it and we'll give feedback to each other, make sure that we're all, you know, our designs are all working together, so it's not like I'm working on this thing and then someone else is working on this other thing, and it's essentially like having 5 mini games instead of creating one game. So that's why it's important that we all work together, but we're not. So if you say something as self-contained as the technology tree, it wouldn't be all of us working on the technology tree at the same time. It would be someone creating a design for it or proposing a design for it, and then us giving feedback. So this is something that, sorry, just for anyone who didn't hear it, she asked about UX testing. And so this is something that we're trying to focus on throughout the project, but on a sort of individual basis. So what you're doing is, you know, every time a layout is created, we'll try to make sure that it's in line with what we want UX-wise. There's also, so on our project at the moment, I'm also overseeing the UX as a whole to make sure that everything is in line with what we want. And then, so before release, do you want to talk about the data team UX value?
So there are many roles within a studio, and because we try and hit that quality mark, new technology, new things can open up avenues for us to analyse that. So we have a data team, and certain platforms like Steam allow us to collect huge amounts of information, which very clever people are able to dissect into useful pieces of information they can present to designers. So we can gather. So most games now will be released, and then you'll quickly notice there's a patch to those games, and it's simply because we don't have the capacity to have 2 million people playing our game while we're making it. We do as much testing as we can, and I guarantee you most designers will ask for more testing, and they will want longer alpha, longer beta phases, because the more people, the more feedback they can get, the more they can iterate and change and improve upon what we're delivering based on the number of people playing it and their interactions with it. And the data science team, once a game's released or any of that, can collect huge amounts of data that we can then use to actually implement real changes.
Yeah, and on top of that, we also do like actual user testing with both existing Total War fans and with brand new users who've never played Total War before, and analyze their feedback and their interaction with the game as well. And that's before release, sorry.
And I know that because I was one of the people who hadn't played Total War before and was a guinea pig for what I did, and I was asked various questions like which military strategies do I know, and I watched Zulu, so I knew the bull's horn, and then because I'm also maybe not the cleverest person in the world, I then said I'd watched Mighty Ducks, and the Flying V was an incredible formation that would win any battle, and I used it in one, so yay me. Andrew, do you have any interaction with the data team, and does that help with anything you're doing?
We definitely get UX reports that come into the UI team, and we act upon them. Basically, we act on people's problems with our games.
Yeah, in terms of, I would say in terms of what teams look for in terms of quality, that will be decided at the very top. Total War has a quality threshold. I mean, it's our main value. We have it if you look, if you go onto our job applications and you look at the values of the studio, quality, I think it's the first one there, because it's what we base everything on. So I think this is the reason why I also wanted to work at Creative Assembly, is you aren't somebody just there to do a job. You are a skilled person to do the best job you can, and the desire and wanting to do that is what will move the studio forward. Since I've been there, we've grown from 300 people to 550 plus people. And every one of those, it's quality. It's someone's adding to your business. Matt is new and is a content producer. Is filming this today, and Matt was hired because of his quality and his skill set. We don't want to bring that in and say, hey, just do an average job. So yeah, quality is fundamental for everything.
Yeah, I think there's a huge push for quality. We sometimes bump into bugs in the UI team. We're like, we have to fix this. Producers might not think it's big, but we're fixing it, we're doing it, we don't care. We're fixing it. We don't really use many tools, to be honest, to make things more efficient. We use Fast Build, which is a distributed build system. That speeds up builds humongously, because everyone's computers are contributing to the build on your system. Other stuff to speed things up. I can't think of anything off the top of my head really we use. Just do the best you can, really.
I think we're probably quite lucky as a studio that we have a tools team that will make bespoke pieces of software and kit for us to make everyone's jobs easier. And so there isn't necessarily one thing that's used. We will, that's again back to the quality sort of mark. So if there's something that's particularly cumbersome or something that takes too long and we want to change that, luckily we have the people in the capacity to either explore new items, buy new software, explore new software to see whether it's compatible. But also we have quite a large tools team now. They seem to always be growing, and they can just, you can go to them with any problem, whether it's from the cinematics team, whether it's from programming, whether it's from design, and you can say, hey, is there anything you can do about this? And they will go, yes, or they will try and make something for you to make your job far easier, whether that's physically getting something into a game, or whether that's making other aspects of your job easier. So yeah, we're quite fortunate in that respect.
Well, with huge code bases, I think the best thing to do is to pick one area and try to stick there for as long as you can. when you're focusing in that area, it'll probably lead you to different little bits of code, and from there you can branch out. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing from a design perspective as well, because on one hand, as Andrew was saying, our code base is incredibly huge, and a designer doesn't need to see that, to be honest. But our database is also huge, and a designer does need to see that. And the database is filled with tables. I don't know how many tables, and you don't need all of those tables if you're, implementing a specific thing for a specific design area. Then there's a set of tables that you need to interact with. And I think as a new starter, it's important that when you're given a self-contained task that you try to figure out that self-contained task, follow through with that, make that work, and then expand from that, because otherwise it's really easy to get lost, to get false assumptions where it looks like this means this and this is linked to this way, and actually that is just misleading, because you need to know that this other thing is also interacting with it in a way that you didn't expect, etc. So as Andrew was saying as well, just try to keep it focused at first and then slowly expand, rather than trying to take in everything at first.
Yeah, so from a recruitment perspective, we will have vacancies. You can come over and chat to us about them all. But we will have these vacancies, and we have lots of hiring managers that will be responsible for those. So personally, I like to look at what I'm doing and how I'm interacting with a manager, whether I'm making things easier or harder, whether some people like me going up to them saying, hey, so what are we doing here? There's 15 people to look at. Are these 15 people good enough? Some people, because their priority is making the game and doing other things, and me interjecting myself constantly into that process isn't helping them. So the way in which I choose to interact with people, how and when, is something constantly I will analyse and look at. And then in terms of if there's tools or things we can use to improve our systems, then yes, that's great. So, we were discussing the other day about whether we should use Confluence in the recruitment team to help track where we're at, so that the hiring managers can see that as well, and it's a tool that they will use, and we will start exploring that and seeing how useful that is to us. We will look at software in terms of whether it's JobVite or a recruitment piece of software. So that's constantly something the quality question earlier, that's certainly something that I like looking at, because I'd never want to assume I'm the best at something or I'm doing it the best I can, because then 3 months later you're not succeeding and you're not doing very well. And so that sort of drive to make things better, is something constantly. So I will look at that in terms of, I've learned that personalities within the studio mean some people, if I walk up to and just, hey, how are you? They're really receptive to that. And then other people, that would be very distracting for them. So yeah, that's certainly something that I've sort of encountered.
I think it's important for everyone as well to do like a personal level of assessment at all times with different people. You need to communicate with different people in different ways. But on top of that, we also, after each project, we have a post-mortem internally where we analyze various different aspects, and it would fall under that as well. So any sort of communication issues that might have been from either side would be raised at this point. And so the post-mortem is not just a post-mortem on the design of the game, it's the post-mortem on the entire project with everything that's contained in it, including communication across departments, within departments, etc.
Yeah, it's basically what Laura said. Most of the times it's post-mortems where we reassess how we work.
I'll just then do a little sales piece, because why not? Our booth is behind you, Creative Assembly. If people want portfolio reviews, advice about working in the industry, information on how to get another step up on the ladder closer to hopefully a dream of working within the games industry, or just knowing a little bit more about the industry and how you get into it, feel free to come across and chat to us. I'll also give a quick tip of get on LinkedIn, add people, connect, network. You're all in a position where now you can be connected with everybody, and so that's a tool I would recommend you using, but certainly come over and chat with us if you have any other questions. Thank you.